Once she's gone, burn every letter.
Even if she deserved to know?
Especially then.
Once she's gone, burn every letter. That's her husband, 20 feet away. Behind a door he thinks is closed. Sonia Brooks stops so fast on that staircase that the suitcase in her hand keeps going without her and knocks against her shin. She doesn't feel it. Even if she deserved to know? That's his mother, soft as a folded napkin. Silence. 3 full seconds. Especially then. And that's the moment Sonia Brooks decides her marriage was a mistake from the first day. She's wrong. She is so unbelievably, catastrophically wrong that in about 35 minutes, she's going to be sitting at her own kitchen table with her hands over her mouth. But we'll get there. 9 minutes earlier. Rain coming down like the sky owes somebody money. A mansion outside Seoul with more square footage than sense. And Sonia Brooks walks through the front door, soaked to the knees, in a camel coat over a black slip dress, gold hoops, box braids pulled up off her neck, and a manila envelope under her arm. 29. Architect. Atlanta by birth, Seoul by marriage, and done by Tuesday. She's not crying. That's the thing you need to understand about her tonight. She cried for the first year. She argued for the second. This is the third. And all she is now is tired. The specific kind of tired that comes from being lonely inside a house with 14 people in it. The attorney's already waiting at the long table. Kang Do-hyun. Gray suit, silver at the temples, the warmest smile in the building. He's been the family's lawyer for 15 years. He's the one who booked her flight when her father died. He's the only person in this house who ever asked how she was doing and then waited for the answer. Mrs. Bin. He stands. He always stands. You look exhausted. I look free. Sonia. He says it gently. There's still time to... Do-hyun, if you tell me to think about it one more time, I'm going to hit you with an umbrella. He laughs. She almost does. Then the door opens, and the temperature in the room drops 11 degrees. Bin Woo-seok. 35. Black suit, no tie, collar open. 6'2" and built like a closed door. Black hair pushed back off a face that belongs on a magazine cover and eyes that belong on a warning label. Dark, still, absolutely unreadable. Ink runs up his right forearm and disappears under the sleeve, more of it climbing the side of his neck. The men in this country whisper his name. The men who don't whisper it are the ones who've never met him. He crosses the room. He doesn't look at her. Kang slides the papers over. Sir, if you'd like to review, Woo-seok picks up the pen and signs. No pause, no reading, no breath. 3 pages, 3 signatures, 11 seconds total. And he sets the pen down on the table with a small plastic click that Sonia is going to hear in her sleep for the rest of her life. She stares at him. You didn't read it. Nothing. Woo-seok. There's a page in there about the house. There's a page about the money. You didn't even... Is it what you want? That's not... Is it what you want? Yes. It rips out of her. God, yes, it's what I want. It's been what I want for... Then it's correct. And he turns to leave. Sonia laughs. It's an awful sound. It's the sound of something snapping in a load-bearing wall. 3 years. Her voice climbs. 3 years and you signed it in 11 seconds. That's it? That's what our marriage was worth? 11 seconds? He stops at the door. His hand is on the frame. His knuckles are white on the frame, actually, but she's behind him, so she doesn't see that, and neither do you yet. He doesn't turn around. He doesn't say a word. He just goes. Woo-seok. Madam Han is in the hallway. 60-something, silver bob, cream silk, pearls, and a spine like rebar. She's never once raised her voice in this house, and everyone in it is scared of her. Come upstairs. He follows her like a boy, and Sonia stands alone in a dining room with an attorney and a signed divorce and absolutely nothing in her chest. And Kang Do-hyun quietly gathers the papers and says the kindest thing anyone said to her in months. For what it's worth, you deserved better than this house. She nods. She can't speak. He touches her shoulder on the way out. 15 years of trust in one small gesture. Remember that. She goes up to pack. 3 years of a life fits in one suitcase, which is its own kind of answer. She takes her drafting pencils. She takes a photo of her mom. She leaves the jewelry, all of it, every piece on the dresser, because she'd rather walk out with nothing than take one thing he bought to fill a silence. She's zipping it closed when she hears voices in the hall. And Sonia Brooks, who has never once eavesdropped in her life, who thinks it's tacky, who has said so at parties, freezes with her hand on the zipper. Are you really going to let her leave? His mother. Nothing. A long, long nothing. Then, Mom. A breath. Once she's gone, burn every letter. Silence. Even if she deserved to know. Especially then. And there it is. Sonia stands in a bedroom she never chose, in a house she never wanted, holding a suitcase, listening to her husband order the destruction of the only thing she ever gave him that cost her anything. Letters. Every week for 3 years, she wrote him letters. Because he was never home, because he never picked up, because she was a woman in a country she was still learning, married to a man who spoke maybe 40 words a day, and writing them down was the only way she could get anything to land. She never got one back. Not one. Not once. She'd assumed he didn't read them. She never once considered he'd want them destroyed. She walks out of that house at 11:40 p.m. in the rain and doesn't look back. And if this story ended right here, you'd all be in the comments calling him a monster, which is exactly what he wants. Real quick, if you already hate this man, type burn it in the comments. Seriously, I want to see how many of you are about to owe him an apology. Keep watching. Here's Sonia Brooks, before this house got hold of her. Atlanta, Georgia Tech, top of her class in architecture, which she'll mention, unprompted, at any provocation. She designs buildings that let light in on purpose. That's her whole thing. That's her signature. She's got a phrase she uses in every presentation. A room that hides how it works is a room that doesn't trust you. She met Wusiak at a bid meeting in Incheon. He was there to buy the land. She was there to build on it. He said 9 words to her in 90 minutes, and she went home and could not stop thinking about a single one of them. He proposed 8 months later, on a Tuesday, in a parking garage, with no ring because he'd forgotten it, and he was so annoyed with himself about it that she said yes mostly out of delight. Her mother said, "Baby, that man's got a whole life you haven't seen." Sonia said, "So I'll see it." She never saw it, because here's what 3 years in that mansion actually looked like. Wusiak is gone before sunrise, every morning. She's never once woken up next to him. She wakes up next to a dent. She makes breakfast anyway. Every single morning for 3 years, she gets up at 6 and makes breakfast for a man who left at 4:40. She pours 2 coffees. Hers goes in a blue ceramic mug, chipped on the handle, that she brought from her apartment in Atlanta. His goes in whatever's clean. Then she sits at that table alone and watches his get cold. Every morning, 3 years. Ma'am, that's Mrs. O, the housekeeper, 64, 4'11", and the only person in this house with a personality. You do know he's not coming. He might. He has not come in 11 months. So he's due. Mrs. O takes the cold cup away without another word. She does this every day. They've been doing this bit for 3 years. It is, technically, the healthiest relationship in the building. He never celebrates their anniversary. He never remembers her birthday. The gift always arrives, always perfect, always exactly what she wanted, but never from his hands, and never with a card. He never argues with her, not once. She's tried. She has thrown a genuinely spectacular fight at that man, and he just stood there and absorbed it, like a wall absorbing a tennis ball. He never apologizes, which is somehow worse. You can't forgive a man who won't admit there's anything to forgive. He just exists beside her. Silent. Solid. Gone. And on her worst night, the night her father died, the night she sat on the bathroom floor at 3 a.m. in a house full of strangers, Wusiak came home at 4 in the morning, saw the light under the door, and stood on the other side of it. She heard him. She heard him breathing. He stood there for 11 minutes. Then he walked away. She never told anyone that. Not her mother, not her friends. She told a letter. Because that's the other thing about Sonia. Brooks. Every Sunday night, at the desk by the window, she wrote him 1 page, sometimes 2, sometimes 12 if it was bad. She told him about the buildings she was designing. She told him the joke Mrs. O made about his suits. She told him her father died. She told him she was lonely in a way that had started to scare her. She told him once that she'd stopped sleeping on his side of the bed because it made her feel like a widow. She sealed every one. And every Sunday night, she handed it to the one person in that house who always said yes. Do-hyun, can you get this to him? And Kang Do-hyun would take it and hold it in both hands like it mattered, and smile that warm smile and say, "Of course, Mrs. Bin. I'll put it in his hands myself." 2 days after she walks out, Sonia comes back. Not for him. For a hard drive with 4 years of drawings on it, in a study she's allowed in exactly once. That's the excuse. Here's the truth. At 2 a.m. in a hotel room, one sentence has been eating her alive. Burn every letter. She wants to see them. That's all. She wants to hold 3 years of her own handwriting in her hands and know it existed. Because if he burns them, then it's like she never said any of it, like the whole marriage was a room with no windows and she was the only one in it. Mrs. Bin. Mrs. O nearly drops a tray. He's not here. I know. I'm not here for him. She goes to the study. She tears it apart. Drawers, shelves, cabinets. The safe she isn't supposed to know the combination to. It's her birthday. She stands there for a second when she realizes that, and then she keeps going. Nothing. She checks his bedroom, his office, the library, the guest library, because this house has two, which she has always found personally offensive. Nothing. No letters, not one. 3 years of writing, and there is not a single page of it in this entire house. And then she walks into the sitting room and stops. The fireplace is full of ash. Fresh, cold but fresh. Days old at the most. Sonia kneels down on that marble in a $200 coat and puts her hand in it and just sits there. She finds one corner, one scrap, maybe an inch, browned at the edge. There's part of a word on it. So, the start of her own name in her own handwriting. And Sonia Brooks, who did not cry when she signed those papers, who did not cry in the rain, who did not cry in the hotel, puts her forehead on the hearth of her ex-husband's fireplace and comes apart. She's still on the floor when a shadow falls across her. Mrs. O. The old woman doesn't say anything for a second. She just looks at the ash, then at Sonia, then at the door behind her, like she's checking something. Then she does something that could get her killed in this house. She reaches into her apron and takes out a key. It's small, brass, old. Ma'am. Mrs. O, listen to me. Her voice has dropped so low it's barely there. I've worked in this house for 26 years. I've never said one word about that man, not one, to anybody. She presses the key into Sonia's ash-black hand and closes her fingers around it. Second basement. There's no second base. Second basement. Mrs. O's eyes are wet and furious and absolutely certain. Behind the wine racks, and ma'am, she grips Sonia's wrist hard enough to hurt. Whatever you think you know about your husband, a beat. You don't know the first thing. She walks out. Sonia looks down at a brass key in a hand covered in the ashes of her own name. The wine cellar's the first basement. Everybody knows about that one. 1,200 bottles and a temperature log. Behind the third rack from the left, there's a seam in the stone you'd never find unless somebody told you it was there. The key turns. Sonia finds a light switch, flips it, and stops breathing. She was expecting a vault, guns, cash, whatever it is that men like her husband keep under the ground. It's a storeroom, 60 feet long, climate-controlled, spotless, and lined floor to ceiling with shelves, and every shelf is packed with boxes, and every box is labeled, and every label is in the same hard, careful handwriting. She takes one down at random. Sonia, birthday. 2. She mentioned this in March, inside, a first edition architecture book she'd talked about once for maybe 9 seconds at a dinner where she was sure nobody was listening. She puts it down. She takes another. Sonia, anniversary 1. A necklace she's never seen. Still boxed, still tagged. Sonia, anniversary 2. Sonia, anniversary 3. Sonia's hands are shaking now. She's going faster. Box, box, box. Every gift he ever forgot. All of them. Bought, wrapped, labeled, never given, and then it gets worse. Because there's a whole wall that isn't gifts. It's her. Every draft she ever threw away. Every sketch. There's a napkin down here. An actual cocktail napkin. With a doodle of a rooftop she drew at a party in her first year and threw in a trash can. And it is in a plastic sleeve. In a box. Labeled with the date. There are photographs of her she's never seen. Her, laughing at a worksite. Her, asleep on a couch. Her, on the front steps in the snow, mid-sentence, hands up, obviously arguing about something. Somebody took hundreds of pictures of this woman for 3 years. Somebody built a room under a house to keep them in. What is this? She says out loud, to nobody, in a whisper. What is this? And then she sees the cabinet. It's at the far end. Steel. Locked. The only locked thing in a locked room in a locked basement. The brass key doesn't fit, but the hinges are on the outside, and Sonia Brooks has a degree in how buildings are put together, and about 90 seconds later the door comes off in her hands and lands on the floor with a bang that echoes down 60 feet of concrete. She looks inside, and her legs stop working, Envelopes, hundreds of them, stacked and bundled and boxed in rows, in order, by date, every single one addressed in her handwriting, Bin Wusiak, every single one of them sealed, not one opened, not one torn, not one touched. 3 years of her heart, sitting in a steel cabinet under a mansion, and he never read a single word. She picks one up. Her hands are shaking so badly she nearly drops it. It's the one from the night her father died. She knows it by the water stains. Sealed. She grabs another, the one where she told him she was scared, the one where she told him she loved him for the first time and then didn't sleep for 2 days, waiting for a response that never came. Sealed. She grabs a fistful, and they're all sealed. Everyone. Hundreds. And she sits down hard on the concrete floor with 3 years of unopened letters in her lap. And here's where she gets it wrong for the second time in 3 days. And honestly, so would you, because Sonia looks at that cabinet and thinks, he kept them and never even opened them. That's not neglect. That's cruelty. That's a man who saved my heart in a box just to prove he didn't need it. That's what she thinks. She's wrong again. Look at the cabinet. Look at it. He didn't lock those letters in. Somebody locked them away from him. Rewind. 3 years. Here's who Sonia Brooks was before this house got quiet. She's loud. She's the woman at the party doing an impression of her own husband. Watch. This is him at breakfast. And then just standing perfectly still, staring, saying nothing, while an entire dinner table loses it. She's newly married. She's hopeful in a way that's almost hard to watch, knowing what you know. And she has a problem. Her husband doesn't answer his phone. Not to be cruel. He physically doesn't have it. In his line of work, you don't carry a phone that can be traced, and Sonia doesn't know that yet, and he doesn't explain it, because he never explains anything. So she does what an architect does with a problem. She engineers around it. I'm going to write to you, she announces one night, like it's 1840. Nothing. That was a joke. That was funny. Nothing. You're the worst audience in Asia. And this is the part? He almost smiles. Almost. The left corner, 1 millimeter. She counts it as a standing ovation and talks about it for a week. So every Sunday, she writes, and every Sunday she carries it downstairs, and Kang Do-hyun is always there. Always. That's the thing you notice on the rewatch. He's always there. Do-hyun. Mrs. Bin. He stands. He always stands. Can you... To your husband? He's already reaching. Of course. And she hands it over, and he takes it in both hands every time like it's something breakable. And he says, I'll put it in his hands myself. And Sonia says, you're the only one in this house who's nice to me. And Kang Do-hyun laughs and says, someone has to be. He does put them in a cabinet, just not the one she thinks. Week 1, he reads it in his car before he files it. Week 2, he reads it in his car. By month 4, he's stopped reading them at all. He just drops them in the box because he already knows what's in them. Longing. That's what's in them. She keeps hoping, every week on paper, dated and signed. And a woman who's still hoping is a woman who's still married. And a woman who's still married is a woman who's still there. Which is a problem. Meanwhile, upstairs, Wusiak comes home at 4 a.m. and stands in his own hallway. Anything? He asks. He asks this every night for 3 years, every single night, and Kang Do-hyun looks up from a stack of paperwork with a face full of gentle professional sympathy. Nothing tonight, sir. Pause. I'm sorry. And Bin Wusiak, a man an entire city is afraid of, nods once and goes upstairs and lies down next to his wife's back and doesn't touch her because he thinks she doesn't want him to. 3 years. Every night. Comment he never got them if your stomach just dropped. Because I need you to sit with this. For 3 years, that man came home every night and asked if his wife had written to him. And every night, the guy he trusted most looked him in the face and said no. But stay, because you have not met the real villain yet. You've just been watching him say, "Of course, Mrs. Bin," for 20 minutes. Sonia comes up out of that basement like something out of a war. Ash on her coat, concrete dust on her knees, an armload of unopened envelopes. She finds Madame Han in the garden room with a cup of tea and a face like closed shutters. Sonia drops 300 letters on the table. Tea goes everywhere. Neither of them moves. Explain. Madame Han looks at the letters, and this elegant, terrifying 68-year-old woman, pearls, silk, spine of rebar, who has never in her life let a single feeling reach her face, starts to shake. You found them. Explain, or I swear to God I will burn this house down with all of us in it. Sonia, you told him to burn them. He told me to burn them, Madame Han says, 2 days ago. And do you know why? Because Because he found out I'd been hiding them, and he couldn't stand to look at them, and he wanted them gone before you ever saw what was done to you. The room goes silent. What? Madame Han puts her cup down. It rattles. Sit down, child. I'm about to tell you something I have not said out loud in 3 years. I found them 2 years ago, she says, by accident, in Do Hyun's office, 4 boxes of them. You knew? I sat on the floor of that office and I read one. Her voice cracks straight down the middle. The first one I opened, you were telling my son about a building you were designing. You said you wanted to put a window in a stairwell because, how did you put it? Nobody should have to climb in the dark. Sonia stops breathing, and I thought, this girl is going to save him. Madame Han presses a hand to her mouth, and then I thought, this girl is going to die here. What? 6 weeks earlier, Madame Han says, I got a phone call. No name, no number, a man's voice, but wrong, filtered, mechanical, and he said, she stops, starts again. He said, the wife stays married, the wife stops breathing. Your choice. The garden room is very, very quiet. I went to the police. A bitter laugh. You understand what I am. I went to the police, Sonia. That's how frightened I was. Nothing. No trace. 2 weeks later, a man was killed 40 feet from my son's car, and I got a photograph of it in the mail with no note. She looks up. So when I found those letters, every one of them saying, I'm still here. I still want this. I still love him. I understood the shape of it. That man wasn't going to hurt you for being married. He was going to hurt you for staying. So you hid them. So I hid them. Tears are running down her face and she doesn't wipe them. I thought, if she believes he doesn't love her, she'll go. She'll be angry and she'll be hurt and she'll be alive, in Atlanta, in her mother's house, where nobody can reach her. You let your son think his wife never wrote to him. Yes. For 3 years. Yes. Madame Han's voice breaks in half. And every night he came home and asked. Every night. And every night I watched a man I gave birth to walk up those stairs like something that had been shot. Sonia is crying now too. She hates it. She can't stop it. 2 days ago he found the boxes in my room, Madame Han whispers. He read one, just one, and then he sat on my floor for 2 hours and did not say a single word. And then he said, burn them, all of them, before she comes back for her things. And I said, even if she deserved to know? And he said, especially then. He said, especially then. Madame Han looks up. Because he'd rather you spend the rest of your life thinking he was a monster than spend one more day in a house where somebody wants you dead. Sonia puts her hands flat on the table because otherwise she's going to fall. Who called you, she says. Who was it? I don't know. Madame Han, I have spent 3 years and a great deal of money trying to find out. The old woman looks up, and for the first time she looks 80. I never found him. Whoever he is, he's close. He's been close the whole time. She reaches across the table and grips Sonia's wrist. Sonia, listen to me. He is in this house. Sonia doesn't get to think about it, because the next morning at 9:14 a.m., 3 cars pull out of that driveway to take her to the airport. Her flight's at 2. She's going home. That's the plan. That was always the plan. And Bin Woo-seok is in the car. He doesn't ask. He just gets in beside her and closes the door. You don't have to. I'm not talking to you. He looks straight ahead. I'm putting you on a plane. Then I'm never in your life again. Those are 2 different things. Sonia stares at the side of his face and thinks about a basement full of boxes with her name on them. Woo-seok? Don't. I found the... Don't. They're 40 seconds onto Yangjae Road when the lead car stops. Not slows. Stops. A truck slides sideways across 4 lanes ahead of them, and the driver of Sonia's car says one word into his collar, and the world comes apart. The first impact hits the front quarter panel and spins them 110 degrees. Glass goes white, not shatters, whitens, spiderwebbing all at once across armored panes rated for exactly this and holding, barely. Sonia's screaming. She doesn't know she's screaming. 3 more impacts. The car rocks like something's kicking it. And Bin Woo-seok, who has never once touched her without permission, who stood outside a bathroom door for 11 minutes and walked away, throws himself across the seat and covers her body with his. Completely. Head to knees. She's underneath him and she can feel his heart going and she can hear him saying something over and over into her hair in Korean, low and fast and wrecked, and she doesn't have the vocabulary for it. She won't find out what it meant for another 2 hours. Jabal, Jabal, Jabal. Please, please, please. Then it stops. The truck's gone. Whoever was in it is gone. The whole thing lasted 40 seconds. There's a bodyguard on the pavement who's been with this family since he was 19. His name was Park Min-jae. He liked terrible pop music, and he had a daughter turning 4 in August, and he is not going to see it, and Sonia is going to remember his face for the rest of her life. Police, sirens, a hospital corridor full of men in suits pretending not to be terrified, and Woo-seok stands in the middle of it with blood on his shirt that isn't his and does not sit down for 6 hours. At some point, a detective says the thing that changes everything. "Sir, the angle of the shots." "I know. They weren't aimed at you." "I know." The detective hesitates. "Sir, they were aimed at the left rear. That's the passenger side. That's my wife," Woo-seok says. "I know." He looks up, and for the first time in this entire story, his face is doing something. It's not cold. It's not still. It's terror. Nobody in that hallway has ever seen it before. A couple of them look away because it's like watching a building come down. "Someone doesn't want me dead," he says quietly. He looks at the door of room 511, where a woman he signed away 4 days ago is sitting on a bed with glass in her hair. "They want her dead." Room 511, 1 a.m. Sonia's got a cut on her temple and a hospital gown over a slip dress, and she has not stopped shaking in 9 hours. Woo-seok's in the doorway. He hasn't come in. He's been standing there for a while. "Are you going to stand out there?" she says without looking up. "Or are you going to keep doing the thing where you stand outside doors?" He goes very still. "You heard that? The night my dad died?" She finally looks at him. "Yeah, Woo-seok, I heard you. 11 minutes. Silence. "I didn't know if you wanted me in there." "You could have asked." "I did." His voice is barely there. "Every night. For 3 years. Nobody ever brought me an answer." And Sonia Brooks, sitting in a hospital bed with glass in her braids, starts to cry because she suddenly understands that they have been standing on opposite sides of the same door for 3 years. He comes in. He sits down. He puts his head in his hands. And then Bin Woo-seok says more words in 9 minutes than he said in 3 years. "When I was 15, my father took me to a warehouse to show me what the business was. His voice is flat and awful. There was a man there. He talked to a reporter. My father made me watch." "Woo-seok." "I'm answering your question. Let me answer it." She shuts up. "My father had a rule. You want to hurt a man, you don't hurt the man. You hurt what he goes home to." He's looking at the floor. "So I made sure I didn't go home to anything. 20 years, no friends, no dog, nothing anybody could aim at. And then you married me. And then I married you." He laughs, and it's the worst sound in this whole script. The single most selfish thing I have ever done. Every time I stayed away, somebody else died instead." He looks up at her. "That's not a metaphor, Sonia. That's arithmetic. I stayed away, and they went after my shipping, my men, my mother's driver. And every time I got close to you, every time I stayed for breakfast, every time I put my hand on your back at a party, every single time, something happened within a week. Every time." Sonia's mouth opens. "You thought. I thought I was the thing that was going to get you killed." He says it simply. "So I removed myself. That's all this was. That's all 3 years of this was. I was trying to make you the least valuable thing in my life, so nobody would ever pick you up and use you against me. Woo-seok, I wrote to you. I know. I found out on Tuesday." His jaw works. "I've read one. I couldn't do the second one." "Why?" "Because in the first one, you thanked me." He can't look at her. "For a window, in a stairwell. You wanted to tell me about a window, Sonia, and I never." He stops. "Say the rest," she says. He doesn't. "Woo-seok, say the rest. There's one more thing, and you're not saying it." And this man, bleeding, sleepless, 36 hours from the worst day of his life, closes his eyes and says, "Not yet." And that's it. That's all she gets. Because there's exactly one thing left that he hasn't figured out, and he's about to. Here's what breaks it. It's not a wiretap. It's not a detective. It's not a car chase. It's a sentence. 3 a.m., hospital corridor, and Kang Do-hyun arrives with 2 coffees and that warm, tired, 15-year smile. "I came as soon as I heard." He hands one to Woo-seok. "How is she?" "Alive." "Thank God." he exhales. And the letters, Madame Han told me she confessed everything. I'm so sorry, sir. 3 years. He shakes his head slowly. 3 years of Sunday nights, and she never knew. Woo-seok goes completely still. What did you say? I said I'm sorry. Sunday nights. Kang blinks. My mother told you she hid letters. Woo-seok's voice doesn't rise. It doesn't have to. She never told you what day my wife wrote them. The corridor is very, very quiet. I must have. Nobody knew that. Woo-seok stands up. Not my mother, not the staff, not me. One person on this earth knew my wife wrote on Sunday nights. He looks at 15 years of trust holding a cup of coffee. The person she handed them to. And Kang Do-hyun stops pretending. It's not dramatic. That's what makes it awful. His face doesn't twist. His voice doesn't change. He just sets the coffee down on a windowsill, very neatly, and lets his shoulders drop about an inch. And it's like watching a coat come off. 21 years, he says. Do-hyun. 21 years, 4 months. He looks up and he's smiling. Your father sent 6 men to a house in Daegu in the spring of 2005. Do you remember that? No, of course not. You were 14. You were probably at school. Woo-seok doesn't move. My mother was in the kitchen, Kang says. My father was in the hall. I was 11 and I was under the bed, and I was there for 9 hours and nobody came. Kang. So I studied. I got very, very good grades. He straightens his cuffs. I passed the bar. I applied to your family's firm. Your father hired me. Himself. He shook my hand and he told me I reminded him of himself. He laughs. He never once asked where I was from. You could have killed me 100 times. Killed you? And for the first time, Kang's voice cracks. And it's rage, 20 years of it, coming up like water through a floor. Killing you takes 9 seconds. I'd have done it in the parking garage the day you proposed to her. He steps closer. I didn't want you dead, Woo-seok. I wanted you alone. I wanted you to have exactly what I had. A house with nobody in it. Doors nobody knocks on. 9 hours under a bed and nobody comes. Woo-seok's face is gray. The calls to my mother. Me. The messages telling me the shipments were compromised every time I got close to her. Me. All of it. Kang is beaming now, and it's the most frightening thing in this entire story. Every rumor, every argument, every nothing tonight, sir. 3 years of Sunday nights, and every week I watched her hand me her own heart in an envelope and say, thank you, you're the only one who's nice to me. And the road? Today? And here, Kang Do-hyun's face finally changes, because he's genuinely confused. What? Yangjae Road, this morning. I don't do that. He actually looks offended. I don't hurt her. I've never hurt her. That's the entire point. She was supposed to leave. She signed. She was going to Atlanta. His voice climbs. Why would I? She was already gone. Why would anyone? And Woo-seok understands it half a second before Kang does. Because you told somebody she was leaving, he says quietly. And she knows what you look like. Kang Do-hyun goes white. I didn't hire that truck, Woo-seok says. You didn't hire that truck. A beat. 21 years, Do-hyun. You built a whole life out of other people's men. Did you ever once ask yourself who was doing your errands? Kang's mouth opens. Nothing comes out. He spent 2 decades being the smartest man in every room. He never noticed he'd become somebody's tool. Okay, comment Sunday nights if that got you, because I've been building that one word since minute 16. And subscribe, because the last 5 minutes of this is the reason I wrote the whole thing. The rest is paperwork. Kang Do-hyun is arrested at 6:40 that morning in a hospital corridor with his coffee still on the windowsill, going cold. And he gives up everything, every name, every account, the truck, the men in it, the rival family that used him for 3 years the exact way he used a lonely woman's Sunday nights, smiling, patient, saying of course. He'd spent 21 years being so busy being the ghost in someone else's house that he never checked whose house he was standing in. Woo-seok doesn't touch him, not once. He never even raises his voice. He just hands the whole thing to the prosecutors. Every ledger, every account, 20 years of his own family's paperwork, all of it, including the parts that burn him, and walks out of the building at 7 a.m. with nothing left of the empire his father built. His lawyer is horrified. Sir, you've handed them everything. Good, Woo-seok says. Sir, that's your entire... Then there's nothing left to aim at her. He gets in the car, not a courtroom, not a hospital, their kitchen, the same table where a blue ceramic mug went cold 300 times. It's 8 p.m. Sonia's got a butterfly bandage on her temple and her braids down. Wusiak's in a t-shirt. Yes, she's never seen him in a t-shirt. The ink goes all the way down his right arm and across his ribs, and she can't stop looking at him, at a man she was married to for 3 years and is meeting for the first time. Between them, on the table, in 12 neat stacks, 311 unopened envelopes. "Read yours," he says. Sonia looks at the stacks, and she smiles, sad and wrecked and warm. "No, Sonia, I know what's in mine. I lived it." She pushes the first stack toward him. "You read them." Silence. "All of them?" "Every single one, Bin Wusiak, out loud, starting with the one from the first Sunday. And you're going to do it while I sit right here and watch your face." And he does. It takes 6 hours. He reads about a window in a stairwell. He reads about the joke Mrs. O made about his suits. And he stops and reads it twice and says, "She said that?" And Sonia says, "She says it every week." And he makes a sound that isn't quite a laugh but is definitely trying. He reads the one where she's mad at him. He gets 3 lines in and has to put it down and pick it back up. He reads the one about her father, and neither of them can talk for 11 minutes, and Sonia reaches across the table and puts her hand on his wrist, and it's the first time she's touched him in 14 months. He reads the one where she says she loves him. He reads it, and then he sits there holding it, and Sonia watches a man who ran half of Seoul read the words, "I love you," for the first time, 2 years and 4 months late. "You wrote this?" he says, "in April." "Yeah." "I was in the house." "Yeah." "I was 30 feet away." "Yeah, baby," she says softly. "You were." At 2 a.m., he reaches the last one. Different envelope. Thicker. The corner's dented like it's been carried around. He stops. And this is it. This is the whole story. Because the old Bin Wusiak, the one from 4 days ago, the one who signed in 11 seconds, that man puts this in a drawer. That man reads it alone at 4 a.m. and never mentions it and dies with it in his pocket. Sonia watches him. He turns the envelope over in his hands, twice. Then he slides it into the middle of the table and looks up at her. "Read it with me." And Sonia Brooks, architect Atlanta, 30 years old next month, puts her hand on one side of that envelope, while her ex-husband puts his hand on the other. "Nobody should have to climb in the dark," she says. "What?" "Nothing." She's crying and laughing at the same time. "Open it." 8 months later, no mansion, no gates, no 14 people. There's a small house above the Han River with too many windows. Obnoxiously many windows, honestly. She designed it herself and she will tell you about it. And light coming in at every possible hour on purpose. Sunday morning. Sonia comes down in a robe with her hair wrapped, and Bin Wusiak is already at the table. He is at the table. He didn't leave at 4:40. He hasn't left at 4:40 in 8 months. There's no empire to run, and he has never once mentioned missing it. And on the table, in front of her chair, is a blue ceramic mug, chipped on the handle, from an apartment in Atlanta, full, steaming, poured before she asked. She stops in the doorway and looks at it. "What?" he says. "Nothing." "You're doing the face." "I don't have a face." "You have a face. You've had it since the parking garage." She sits down and picks up her mug and drinks the coffee her husband poured her before she asked for it. Then she reaches into her robe pocket, takes out one folded page of handwriting, and sets it beside his plate. Wusiak looks at it, and Bin Wusiak, cold, silent, terrifying, smiles. All the way, both sides. It's a whole event. "You're still writing?" Sonia grins at him over the rim of a blue mug. "You're finally reading." People think love dies because somebody lies. Sometimes. But sometimes love almost dies because the truth showed up late, because it got handed to the wrong man on a Sunday night, and he smiled, and he said, "Of course," and he put it in a box. 311 letters. 3 years of a woman saying, "I'm right here," into a silence that a stranger built on purpose, and a man standing on the other side of a door for 11 minutes, waiting for a permission that had already been written and sealed and stolen. Across the table, Wusiak reaches for her hand. And this time, Sonia doesn't hesitate. If this one got you, subscribe, because every story on this channel is about somebody who almost lost everything to a silence they didn't ask for. And this week, say the thing, out loud, to the person. Don't make them read it 3 years late.